Hello, internet friends. I am Ryan. I am a session and commercial player as well as composer. I'm also a huge gear nerd. This is my studio, and this is Demos in the Dark. From time to time, I like to do this thing where I will take a bunch of pedals from a brand that I think is exceptional and use those in the creation of a track, and then come back with those pedals, show you how I got those sounds and how I use these pedals in production. And that's about it. It's not a demo. It's just more of a, check this out. This is how I do this. Tonight, we're going to be checking out Empress Effects. Empress makes really, really powerful studio-grade effects units. And then, you know, there's stuff like the Zoya, which is like its own thing altogether. Tonight, we're going to be looking at the Empress Reverb, the Empress Echosystem, the ParaEq Deluxe, as well as the Heavy Menace. And I'm going to use all these to do kind of a Lo-Fi R&B type track here. I'm going to use them on everything, one way or another. Then come on back here and I will show you how I got some of those sounds. Thanks for sticking around. If you, like me, are a nerd who spends way too much time in your dark studio rather than being outside with normal people, then this is a place for you. Please subscribe, like, comment below. I'm always interested in what you have to think, even when I disagree with you. First sound we heard there was a really, really washed out, kind of spooky Rhodes sound. And the way I achieved this was I actually recorded the Rhodes dry. And then I copied the track over, left one completely dry, and then added effects to the other Rhodes track after the fact. Now, these things have stereo in, stereo out, mono in, stereo out. Why did I do it this way? Well, the reason is because if you're trying to make something sound old, it's gotta be in mono because that was the capabilities that they had at the time. And if you look at a lot of lo-fi hip hop stuff, they even run drums in mono. And it's a great sound. Mono is just a beautiful, beautiful sound that I really enjoy. So that's why I did it that way. All right, here we are. We're at the Rhodes. I am running into a Silktone amp. And here's the thing about keyboard playing for me. I am not a keyboard player. I'm not a good keyboard player whatsoever. But I also can't afford to hire keyboard players for every project I want to do. So I have learned to kind of play the right hand and left hand separately and then put them both together. So that's a bit of what you're going to get here tonight. And the part was something like. So first thing I wanted to do was add some EQ with the ParaEq. I wanted to bump up about the 3.5, 4K, somewhere around there. Also want just a little bit more glass on the high end. So if we put that on here, now we have. So yeah, you definitely get more glass on the top end and certainly more mids to make it more present in the mix. The next pedal I went through was the Empress Echosystem, and I used the Lo-Fi setting. You have thing 1 and thing 2, and thing 1, it's up. It doesn't really matter because thing 1 is the alias frequency, and then thing 2 is the alias amount, and you'll see I have that completely rolled off. So I'm actually not using one of the coolest functions about the delay, but let's get that sound. So the next thing I wanted to do was to wash out that echo here with a really spooky reverb. And so I chose the Ghost reverb. Why not, right? And thing 1 and thing 2 is a modulation rate. And then this is thing 2 is a resonance, which they said makes it more spooky. So I wanted to make sure to have enough of that in there. And then we end up with. So as you can hear there, that got really, really spooky and really, really cool and made a great pad. All those echoes and things like that, just really, really great sounding pad for the beginning of that track. All right, and then when we get into that second part there, there's a really, really Washy Rhodes sound. And for that, I changed over to a filtered echo here. And then I actually get stuck with the Ghost. I just used what they call the Casper setting, which is supposed to be a friendlier Ghost setting. But I mean, this sounds just super cool. And then we have that very, very cool slapback distorted Rhodes sound. And so what I did for that was I actually put the Echosystem first, and I dialed in a tape delay setting. The blue is the new tape. I didn't go with the really degraded tape. And the thing 1 and thing 2 on this are just modulation, depth, and rate. And you get super cool sound. Just one loop back on the feedback there. It's almost louder than the original signal. So then we get to the distortion, and you'll see here with the Heavy Menace, basically I'm running the lowest gain possible. And I have the EQ, I have the lows and the mids down pretty darn far, just leaving us with a fair amount of highs. And what you get is this. I love, love, love that sound. So kind of sticking with the 60s sound there with the tape delay and then the distortion, I wanted to use a very 60s sounding reverb. Plate was huge in the 60s, wall of sound kind of thing. And so I dialed in what they call the studio plate. Thing 1 and thing 2 are basically pre-delay and early reflection. So we were here. I love the sound of that just kind of washing out there, and you just get all the imperfections of it, and it makes it so cool. Like, it's just a cool way to get some extra texture in your parts. And without the mids in there, it wasn't going to compete with the guitar that I knew I was going to layer on top of it at some point. So I'm using a Sipe Guitars OH18, which is based off of a jazz bass, and with everything rolled all the way up. And that sounds great. To me, it's a little pingy. So I'm gonna pull back on the bridge with both the tone and the volume. That to me is really starting to sound like I want it to sound, except we're not quite there yet. I want to kind of put a couple of twists on it. So for bass sounds, I'm always kind of looking at that Jamerson type sound. So with the EQ, what I did was I took the 130 and I cranked that a little bit. I took the 350, which is technically a low mid. I took that and I dropped it a little bit. And then I took the 2K and brought it up. So if we're at this. Go back to the original. So I just got to say, this EQ is absolutely amazing. And if you are a bass player, like, this thing is awesome and you will love it and you should get one immediately. It's weird. I didn't play a ton of guitar on this track, just a little bit. And which is funny because it's my main instrument. But I used this Heritage Guitars H535. I have some Righteous Sound pickups in there. And I'm running it into a Silktone amp. Silktone amp sounds like this. Now, one of the things when you go back and listen to like Motown and soul and stuff like that, you'll notice that the guitars never sound very like full. And I think at that point in time, they were kind of looking at where the guitar sat in a mix and really just looked at those frequencies. I don't think it was until like later that we really started thinking about the, you know, like the fullness of guitar sounds and stuff like that, and had big amplifiers and cabinets and all kinds of stuff. So you really do, if you want something to sound older, you really want to kind of just nail those mid frequencies. So the first thing I did here on the ParaEq was I dropped the lows a ton. I brought up the 2K. I brought up the highs as well. So the part I think was like. So it instantly sounds more retro when you do that. And then for the delay, I actually dialed in the filter here, and it just sounds super cool. Not very retro at all, but very cool. And then, you know, at the end of it, I just stuck some really nice room on there. But again, I gotta stress, like the EQ for me is the most important part of this entire thing, because you take that off. So absolutely do not sleep on EQ. All right, and I think the last thing I'll talk about here was just that really, really overly distorted guitar at the end of the track, because it's a sound that I think is really, really cool. Here on the Heavy Menace, you'll see the mids are cranked. We are on the heavier channel. We have the gain up quite a bit, and it makes a really cool sound. So if we were going... What I did is I took that distorted signal and I wanted to make it even dirtier. I want to play it for you on its own. So it's the lo-fi setting here, and thing one and thing two is basically just a really, really dirty echo, and you control that with thing one and thing two. So you can hear it, all right? So then if we add those two together, so the last thing we're going to add is the reverb, and I used a lo-fi reverb on that. It's supposed to be modeled after a 50s radio. You know, like that is a sound that I feel like on its own, not super great sounding, but you put it in that mix when you have all that other stuff filling it out and you just want to nail that very specific kind of mid-frequency bands. Sweet. It's awesome. It did a great job. And in general, you know, I mean, like these pedals are absolutely amazing. Like there is no doubt about it. So because it's stereo in and stereo out, I mean, there's a clap track on there. That clap track had spring reverb on it from the Empress Reverb. Like it is just, they're amazing tools. The algorithms are amazing. They're absolutely beautifully built, beautifully tuned, easy to understand. I love Empress pedals like a lot. So thanks for hanging out with me while I went through this. I always enjoy doing these, and hopefully you enjoy watching them, because the privilege of your time is something I take very, very seriously.